So here's the main topic for today. I hope everybody likes this. This is going to be pretty applicable, I think, to every person watching this today, regardless of where you're at in your own Bitcoin journey. And it's titled, What I've Learned After 5 Years in Bitcoin. And so I got 6 things here. I think I was supposed to be 8. I might have missed 2 here. It'll either be 6 or it'll either be 8. I don't know what it'll be, but we're going to go through them here one at a time. So if you're somebody who takes notes, I would get out a pad. It's nothing crazy. I just think that everybody kind of takes the wrong approach in Bitcoin. And I'm going to share some examples here of what that means to me. But number one here is buy a bunch. We've been talking about the allocations that people have within Bitcoin, and the typical process and timeline of somebody who just gets into Bitcoin, and there's going to be a lot of people getting into Bitcoin in the next little while here, but the typical timeline is like they get a little bit, they start paying attention, they start learning more, they see that Bitcoin is really the only asset that you need to be holding right now, and then they buy more later. And by that time, when later comes, they get about half of what they would have got otherwise. So I'm telling you to buy a bunch. And if you're somebody who's brand new within Bitcoin, buy a bunch and just leave it on an exchange. My advice used to be that it's okay to leave it on the exchange for a little while. My new advice is to leave it on the exchange for a little while. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself here. So if you have a lot to allocate, you buy a bunch, you can leave it on the exchanges. And so for that, what I would say, if you're in Canada, I would use ShakePay for that. If you're in the US, I would use River for that. So those are kind of the top 2 exchanges that I would trust to leave a significant amount of Bitcoin on an exchange. It's not going to be there forever. Your end goal within a couple months would be to actually get that off of the exchange and into your own possession. But it's not something that you need to rush. That's the thing, is that just buy a bunch. And I talked about I did a video that actually went probably my most viral video yet, which is talking about this, talking about taking an inventory of your assets. And that's what I would say. Like, if you don't have a huge amount of money that you can just allocate to Bitcoin today, like if you don't have a savings account or a GIC or something that you can access immediately, take a look at the assets that you do have: stocks, gold, silver, a rental house. Take a look at it and figure out what you can swap for Bitcoin. That's going to be your quickest route to Bitcoin and making a significant dent here while everybody else figures this out. So sell your stale assets, look at the performance, look at it objectively, what Bitcoin's performance has been for the last 10 years versus everything that you hold, and make an educated decision based off of your objective analysis of it. So sell your stale assets and do a lump sum of Bitcoin. Don't DCA, don't buy X amount a month. Whatever you have now, plus whatever you can sell, put into Bitcoin lump sum. So that's number one. It's the reverse of what most people do, which is they buy a little bit and then they end up realizing that they need a lot more of it. And by that time, they get a fraction of what they would have had otherwise. So number 2 is obsess about security. Obsess about security. And you don't have to go off the deep end here, but if you got some Bitcoin, if you have any amount of Bitcoin, and let me show you an example here. This is what kind of makes me, it kind of bothers me within Bitcoin, is that people are like, well, I only have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, so I don't really need to care about the security of it. Well, let me show you something. Because, hold on here. Shrink these. Let me show you something. Because that $1,000 that you think is irrelevant in Bitcoin and you don't really need to pay a whole lot of attention to in Bitcoin, give it some time. Because you can see here, this is the halving of Bitcoin. And those sats, 1 million sats per day. So by 2088, good number, 2088, That same 1 million sats, the whole world will be fighting for in 2088. That's all that will be created in 2088 is 1 million sats per day. And if you go even further, you can see here that 100,000 sats will be per year mined. Newly mined Bitcoin will be 100,000 sats per year. So if you're thinking about this the right way, which is generational for your family, it's going to be there forever, then that 1 million sats, or what you see as $1,000 worth of Bitcoin today, it's going to be substantial. So you have to obsess about security. And again, that doesn't mean you have to go out and spend a whole bunch of money on it. You really don't. But what you do need to do is learn about security and learn the do's and the don'ts about security. And I talk a lot about it on this channel. I have a playlist called Bitcoin Security, if you want to check that out, just to get some help. But I would obsess about your security. Even without spending money, there are ways to increase your security today. So even if you just have, again, $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in an Aqua wallet, there are ways to make that better. I'm sure that you might be unaware of at this stage of the game, but something as simple as actually backing up your wallet, actually writing down your 12 words, keeping that in a safe place, not having too many copies of that in different places, understanding like the risks involved with where you put your 12 words. So regardless of where you are today, you don't have to spend a bunch of money, but there are things that you can do to increase your security today for free. It just takes a little bit of time. So obsess about your security, because it doesn't matter how many sats you have today. If you don't have those sats in 10 or 20 years from now, then all this was for nothing. But again, if you've been in here for a while, if you do have a significant amount in your eyes, then I would highly suggest getting yourself a cold card. And I've kind of changed my tune on this a little bit recently, where I would say, it's fine to get a Jade, a passport, a cold card, but I would specifically focus on getting a cold card. I think that it is the best. And when you're dealing with something like Bitcoin, you shouldn't accept anything less than the best. You have to remember what you're holding here. And so I would suggest, again, even if you have no intention of doing it tomorrow, like setting it up, learning how to do it tomorrow, I still would grab yourself a cold card. And I'm going to put it in the chat here if you want to go check that out. You get 5% off the cold card. I think that every Bitcoiner should have a cold card. I really do. It's kind of gotten overblown in the sense that it's too hard to use. It's not. It's super simple to use. It's the best way to secure your Bitcoin. And there's actually, the further you get into it, the more you obsess about your security, there's a lot of features within that cold card that you can utilize to better protect your Bitcoin. So that's what I would say. Obsess about your security. Number 3, continue studying, stacking, and swapping. So once you kind of get that first amount in there, that's when you can focus on the security, and that's when you can focus on learning more. But focus on security first. That's what I think that a lot of people should be paying attention to. A lot of people, they get into Bitcoin, they start watching like hype videos of what it's going to be worth at this point, when they can trade it back into fiat and cash out. That's such a waste of time. Focus on securing those sats. So continue studying, stacking, and swapping. And what I would say in terms of studying, after you got your security figured out, once you're an expert on security and you've improved your security, you can focus on UTXOs, learn about them because they're going to have a major impact on your future. Focus on the difficulty adjustment, understand why Bitcoin works the way it does and why it's so important. Focus on non-KYC Bitcoin, which means finding ways to obtain sats that aren't connected to you, your cell phone, your identity. Focus on that. Nostr, learn about Nostr and learn about Lightning. That's kind of 5 things that I would focus on after security. Keep stacking, just like we had the Uber Eats example here. Trade your time and energy. Anything excess, put that into Bitcoin. Keep growing your Bitcoin. Every year, you shouldn't look at it day to day, week to week. You shouldn't you shouldn't care what your balance is. All you should care about is on December 31st of each year, you had more Bitcoin than you did on January 1st. And keep swapping, keep finding items around your house, keep finding assets that you can trade, stale assets that you can trade for sats. So studying, stacking, and swapping, that's number 3. Number 4. Oh, and going back to number 3 here too, the best advice I would give you for that, just so you're not kind of out on your own on an island, I would join a community. I would join a community because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to be able to connect with other Bitcoiners. The bigger your Bitcoin network is, the faster you can escape the fiat world. Plus, you can find people within there that you can exchange fiat for Bitcoin, non-KYC Bitcoin. So I think the best community that I've found, that I'm obviously a part of, is our Living in the Future community. So I'll have all these links in like the pinned comment within the video here if you're watching this later, but I just put it in the chat there if you want to check that out. So join a community. You're going to learn more. You're going to meet more people, and it's a really solid way to get some non-KYC Bitcoin. And if you ever have to sell some Bitcoin for an unexpected expense, you can sell it to another Bitcoiner instead of selling it back to an exchange or the BlackRock vacuum, as we call it. So number 4 here is split up your time in Bitcoin. This is for the people who have had the green light turned on already. You understand it. You understand UTXOs. You understand the difficulty adjustment. You understand the different layers of Bitcoin, the network, the importance of decentralization. You're running a node. Once the green light has come on, I think that you should start allocating your precious time to stacking more skills. And so the reason I say that is because myself included here, and these are kind of reminders to myself, all these different lists that I do, it's sharing my thoughts with people, my experience, but also good reminders for me. And I think that you can go pretty far off the deep end. There's a million different rabbit holes that you can get into within Bitcoin. And I think a lot of it, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but I feel like you could be utilizing your time more effectively. So again, once that green light has come on, once you've taken the time to study Bitcoin and learn about all this stuff and why it's so important, start learning other skills. And I don't know what that is. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but whatever you enjoy in life, become better at that. That's what you should be more focused on. So let's say you listen to 10 hours a day of Bitcoin content. Split that in half. Take 5 hours, keep learning about Bitcoin if you want to. I enjoy it myself. But then take that other 5 hours and start learning about other things, whether that's AI, whether that's marketing, sales, I don't know, learning how to cut and store wood. That's something that I'm going to be allocating some time to. Anything that you're interested, become better at that, because that's how you're really going to make a dent in the world here, in my opinion. You want to get so good at whatever it is that you do that you can set your own schedule and you can tell people what they need to pay you in. Because if you become so good at your skill at whatever it is that you do, the amount of leverage that comes with is exactly what you want. I'm still under the camp of you could have as much Bitcoin as you want to, but if you're still going to work for somebody else every day, you're not really sovereign. And the whole point of Bitcoin is sovereignty. So become better at what you enjoy, spend your time learning about other skills, and generalize. Don't specialize either. Learn as much as you can and figure out how these things can work together, which is kind of the next point here, which is let your new skills have sex with Bitcoin. Let your new skills have sex with Bitcoin, which means like take whatever you're good at and figure out how to work that into Bitcoin. Figure out how Bitcoin connects. Don't try to push Bitcoin with other things, but try to figure out what it is that you enjoy, become very good at that, and then implement Bitcoin into that and mix it together. That's the sex part of this. Mix Bitcoin with whatever it is that you do. So that could be starting a YouTube channel after, on the side, or if this is something you want to do, start a podcast or start a business. So whatever it is, that's kind of how this whole 88 Sats radio channel started. It was kind of based around golf first, which is what I enjoy. And so I mixed it with Bitcoin. It turned out to be a little bit more Bitcoin. It took a different direction, but that's what this was. I didn't start this YouTube channel to be like a guy who talks about Bitcoin. It was golf. It was Bitcoin. Mix them together. Still doing that today with our 88 Sats project and King Golf. But let those skills, let your hobbies have sex with Bitcoin. And that's where you're going to find niches. That's where you're really going to make a dent here, in my opinion. So that's where you're taking your time. Instead of watching Bitcoin stuff, learn things and become better at those things, and then implement Bitcoin into that. So start a channel, start a podcast, or start a business, or all three. And then from there, I also did a video on Bitcoin dividends last week, which is talking about utilizing your audience. So if you do this, if you find something that you enjoy, you mix that with Bitcoin, you start a new channel or a business around it, that's when you have an audience now. And that's when you can share these different referral links and affiliate links, and you can start earning Bitcoin dividends that way. So I'll share the video for that in case you haven't watched it yet. I'll talk about the Bitcoin dividends and how to be thinking about this stuff. I'll put that in the show notes as well, or the comment, I mean. So that's number 5. Let your new skills have sex with Bitcoin. And number six here is to smile. Smile and focus on what's inside. Focus on your inner citadel. Once you built this out, once you have your Bitcoin, once you've secured that Bitcoin, once you've started learning new skills and putting that into practice, mixing that with Bitcoin, that's when you can start focusing on, what's inside here. And I'm going to put another link here too. We watched a really good video on the proof of work course last week. I think it was called The Psychology of a King. And it talks about chess. It talks about us being the king on that chessboard and how we need to really find out and figure out what's most important to us and protect that at all costs. So kind of once you get to this stage, you're focused on the inner side. So you've already protected your economic power, your Bitcoin. Now you have to protect what's most important to you, and you have to figure that out yourself. I don't know what's important to you, but those are the things that you have to focus on going forward, is protecting your Bitcoin and protecting what's most important to you. Your outer citadel, your economic power, and your inner citadel, your clarity. So smile, relax, enjoy yourself, spend Bitcoin if needed to increase your happiness. So I kind of spend my Bitcoin. I have a few simple rules that I use. If it's going to improve my health, if it's going to improve my mood, or if it's going to improve my business, that's what I have no issues spending my sats on. Spending and not replacing them, in other words. So you have the economic power now, which is Bitcoin. Now you have to find the clarity. Protect both your outer citadel, your Bitcoin, and your inner citadel, your clarity. What's important to you? So that's my list for today. And again, everybody's kind of at different stages on that list and that timeline. But that's kind of what I've learned in my 5 years here. And I've made mistakes. I've probably spent a lot of time on Bitcoin and not other things. But it's important to have some balance there. Once you got the Bitcoin, the lump sum in there, you've learned to protect that. That's when you can kind of expanding outside a little bit of Bitcoin. So I'm going to get to some comments here. Josh says, air gap jade, no good, no more, Jor. I'm not saying it's not good. I hope I didn't confuse people there. I'm not saying like I'm worried about the jade or I'm worried about the passport. I'm not worried about it. Like if you have a jade or a passport or whatever it is, your Bitcoin's safe. Like realistically, it's safe in my opinion. Anyways, you want to get that into a multi-sig eventually. But the nice thing is, let's say that you do have a jade or a Trezor today, and you get yourself a cold card, and maybe you move half the sats into your new cold card. That's good. That's what you want. You want to diversify yourself a little bit. You don't ever want to have all your Bitcoin in one spot. So you have 2 devices now, and you learn how to use that. Maybe you move the majority of your Bitcoin over to the cold card once you are a little bit more familiar with it. Again, I think that the narrative being that cold card is like super hard to learn. It's not. It's very simple to do. It's no harder than a Jade. It's no harder than a Ledger. I would actually argue that setting up a cold card is easier than setting up a Ledger, truly. But there is this narrative within Bitcoin, and actually the guy NVK and Odell were talking about this last week. I've listened to the episode a couple times now, and I agree with it. Like the narrative that cold card is like super hard to figure out is unwarranted. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but they're all hidden behind like the advanced features within the cold card. So if you just want to get some Bitcoin and put it into a wallet protected by a cold card, that's your sign device. Very simple to do. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, we have people at the Bitcoin Citadel that can help you with that for a very, very reasonable amount of your resources. So email jor@bitcoincitadel.net if you need help with anything, including cold cards. But again, the nice thing about that is you're going to have your existing wallet today. In the case of Josh, a Jade, you get yourself a cold card. And then in the future, you just need one more device now and you have a multi-sig. You need 3 devices for a multi-sig. And so you can kind of do it slowly over time. And that's what I suggest. I think that every person watching this stream today should get a cold card.